Network Entertainment.
In a time of change, one man dared to lead with humility, a pope unlike any other, reshaping the church for a new century. This is where our story begins. This is Pia and the Pope, Reflections on Faith, Legacy, and a Successor, presented by Voices at the Pod. I'm Pia Ontiveros. In this episode, we take a closer look at the extraordinary leadership of Pope Francis, his legacy, and the profound changes he brought to the Catholic Church. My guests are Father Nono Alfonso of the Society of Jesus, of course, a Jesuit, just like Pope Francis. Father Nono heads Jesuit Communications. Hi, Father. Thank you for
Good
being
day.
here.
Thank you for the invitation to be part of this podcast.
Yes, thank you, Cardinal Nono. Ay, Father pala. Okay. And 3 theology professors from my alma mater, the Ateneo de Manila. Dr. Mike Asis, former chair of the theology department. Hi, Doc Mike. Dr. Love.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Habemos.
Habemos.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Mike. Cardinal Mike also, siguro. Dr. Lance Bolano.
Hello po. Maraming salamat for their invitation.
Ganyan talaga pag pinakabata.
Opo.
No?
Yeah.
Cardinal Lance. And Dr. Michael Liberatore, the only American present tonight, the present chair of the theology department.
So magandang gabi sa ating lahat.
Hala, biglang nagtagalog siya.
diba?
Dr. Lib.
Para may credentials ako.
Okay, because I'm not saying naman na dahil nandito yung isang American professor, magiging santo papang isang Amerikano. Hindi naman.
Sana hindi.
But anyway, all of a sudden with the 3 theology professors, all of a sudden I'm trying to remember what I studied in all those theology classes and I can't remember. Not everything anyway. And of course, Danny Rayos del Sol. He's a lay minister at the Santuario de San Antonio Parish in Forbes Park, Makati. Hi, Cardinal Danny.
I'm so honored to be here
Yeah.
and, to be with Academ. Oh
And
my
we're so-
God, I'm intimidated.
Yeah, we're so honored to be with Cardinal Chito
Cardinal
Tagle,
Chito
di ba?
Tagle. Oh, wow.
Kamukha mo raw.
Yes, that was 80 pounds ago.
Wow, months ago. Okay, we'll hear more about those stories in a bit, no? But anyway, first I want to hear your personal stories, about Pope Francis, whether you met him or not, or what he meant in your lives. Mike Asis,
Actually, I courted my wife, my now wife.
your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. During the World Youth Day, when Pope was in 95.
JP2?
JP John Paul II.
John
JP2,
Paul
2005?
II. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's when I started courting her, 95. And 3 years
95
later,
pala.
she became my girlfriend.
Oh.
3 years.
3 years.
95, 6, 7, 8. Then we got married in 99.
Oh, okay.
So kaya si Francis holds a special place in our hearts. And Francis introduced the Sleeping Saint Joseph.
Yes.
So yun ang naging namin, patron saint namin, the Sleeping Saint Joseph. So kasi I remember Francis telling the Philippine audiences during that time, sabi niya, if I had some trouble or problem, I would write it on a piece of paper and put it,
Put it
under, the Sleeping Saint Joseph.
And in the morning, may sagot ka na.
Well, not necessarily. Pero ganon. So kami, Sleeping Saint Joseph. So when I talk to friends, pray to Sleeping Saint Joseph. We had minor, major miracles in our family because of Sleeping Saint Joseph. Sabi ko, the sleeping, don't wake up. Don't wake,
Don't wake him up.
It's more effective when he's
sleeping.
So pray to the Sleeping Saint Joseph.
Okay. Lib, meron ka bang, do you have a personal encounter with Pope Francis or from afar? What did he mean to you?
I didn't have the chance to meet him personally, but I'm a member of the Christian Life community, and we had our World Assembly in 2018 in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and we stayed at the Colegio Maximo where he was assigned for a number of years, and we were able, as part of our assembly, to stay where he stayed, but also we were able to meet with families as part of we were there for about 11 days, and part of the assembly reflection and looking at where we were as church and where we were as a community, as an Ignatian family, and we were able to meet with individuals who still knew him from when he was there, with Jesuits that had worked with him, and I was moved to see how much of his pastoral sense was still remembered and had now become part of how he was Pope and the work that he was doing, the impact he was having. And I think what in many ways was a style he brought to the papacy. And so I think that more than anything, it's the style that he had, the approach that he had to being Pope that was really most moving and challenging in many ways for me.
By the way, where were you when you heard the news that he had passed? And what was your first thought?
I was in my office at Ateneo, and one of my former students who had just come back was sitting with me, and we were talking, and her phone had beeped or something, and she just happened to open up, and she's like, "The Pope's dead." I was like, "Oh, that's probably fake news. He was just on the balcony. He was just going around
the day
the
before.
plaza the day before. He was able to give a blessing."
Right.
I said, "That's probably fake news." She said, and then she showed it, and it was the Vatican news. And I was like, "Oh, baka totoo to." So immediately I went online, and then I found out, and I was really up. I was surprised at the level of upset I felt and how I was affected by the passing.
A lot of people would say that, no? How surprised they were that they felt that they were so affected by his death. Let me go back to Mike and ask lang that question before I go to Danny. Mike, where were you when you heard the news, and then what was your first thought?
I was probably in the hospital. I'm always in the hospital lately because of my various infirmities. But anyway, yeah. And then I think it was my wife who told me. And then I think she was crying. And then I was so sad also because this is the only Pope who was so human. The only Pope who rejected all the pomp and the pageantry that comes with the office. And the Pope who I think sounds very much like Jesus.
Okay. More on that in a bit. Danny Rayos del Sol. Ito, ikikwento mo yung nangyari when, I was traveling with the Pope at that time, and then there was that Mass at Luneta. Ang ganda ng kwento ni Danny. Sige.
Oh, I have a couple of incident with him. Ang maganda kasi it was my wife's birthday. January 15, dumating yung Pope, ano sila. So we were part of the Couples for Christ Human Barricade. So kami nasa line of defense. Tinignan ko patuloy yung picture ko. We started there very, very early. Hanggang nakatulog na kami doon sa kalye mismo. Talagang natutulog sa kalye. And then, at night around 8 o'clock, in that 11 seconds na dumaan yung Pope, we were so ecstatic na, wow, nakita na. So it's really, really shouting na 11 seconds na dumaan yung Pope.
Naalala mo pa yung 11 seconds?
Yes. So,
pero it didn't feel like 11 seconds. Parang ang haba. No? Parang eternity.
The only reason why I remember it's 11 seconds because it was in my Facebook when I look back. And the second one was, we were given a VIP pass to be at the Pope's Mass at the grandstand on January 18. So we were very, very happy. So we decided we'd go there early. I thought that was early enough when we started to be there at 8 o'clock. But when we were there at 8 o'clock, it's already a sea of people. So no, you could only enter through the Calao Street in Luneta. So we did. My goodness, it took us 4 hours from Calao to that barricade in the grandstand. You didn't have to walk. Talagang itutulak ka lang talaga ng tao. So finally, after 4 hours, nandoon kami doon sa fence. So siyempre, hindi pa rin kami makapasok kasi ayaw na talaga kami papasukin. And I really, really tried my best. So nakikiusap ako sa mga guards. So the guards were so stoic and they did not gonna so one guard, sabi ko, "Guard, pwede ba magtanong?" But my tanong was really, it's not really a tanong, but to appeal. So sabi ko, "Guard, tingnan mo, binigyan kami ng VIP pass pero hindi na kami makapasok sa loob." Sabi ko, "Paano ba to?" Sabi ko, "It's my wife's birthday today." Sabi ko, "Pwede bang papasukin mo yung aking asawa?" And when I was saying that, hindi ako naiyak. I was in tears because hindi lang masyado halata yung tears ko because it was raining very, very hard at that time. I was totally soaked at that time. So siguro naawa sa akin yung sabi ko as in good faith na talagang totoo tong aking yung my wife and my daughter na lang yung aking papasukin mo, dito na lang ako sa labas. You know, my wife, sabi niya, binuksan niya a little bit yung barricade. So nakapasok ngayon yung aking asawa at saka yung anak ko doon sa you know, they were walking towards that box assigned to them. And the miracle is that the guards were all over, pero parang wala hindi sila nakikita, parang walang pumapansin sa kanya na naglalakad siya doon sa gitna nung road na yon. So sabi ko, oh my God. So the more I cried, and then, you know, pagdating na asawa ko doon sa calls me in the phone, and she was crying, said, I'm here. Hindi, you know, parang hindi talaga ako, walang guard na pumansin sa akin. And me, so of course, they had a closer encounter with the Pope at that time. And me, ako naman, sabi ko, nandito ko sa behind the barricade. So, during the, yung communion, I helped in yung, para sige, pila kayo, pila.
So, akala nila
tinutulungan ko lang talaga sila. But I have an ulterior motive. So, pagkatapos ng lahat na mabigyan ng communion, ako na yung very, very last. So pagdating ng very, very last, ako na yung nakakapit doon sa fence na ako na yung nasa fence na ako, hindi na nila ako pwedeng paalisin doon sa fence. And in that same spot where the Pope, you know, I could almost touch him. You know, I saw him and I could almost touch him in that spot. So that was the miracle for me. It was a beautiful, beautiful, ecstatic experience for me and my family. Yeah, it was a nice
So you
birthday.
must have been so moved when you heard that he had passed, no?
When he passed, I was in Dubai, and nag-uusap kami ng asawa ko. We were already in bed kasi na lang kami ng Facebook. Sabi ko, patay na si Pope. And then she was quiet, I was quiet, and we found ourselves crying. And sabi ko, you know, there's nothing much we could do, just offer prayers. So for, you know, a minute of prayer we offered to the Pope. Yun lang, wala na, kasi wala nang But yes, it was a very sad moment for us. As a matter of fact, kukwento lang ako ngayon, naiyak pa.
That's
Yeah.
true. Okay, si Professor Lance Bolano. Lance.
Actually, I don't have a personal encounter with Pope Francis, except that when he was elected the Pope in 2013, that was when I started teaching in Ateneo. So it was actually a good start. It's Sir Mike who hired me. So I think it made it easier for me to teach the course that I teach, because I teach the social teachings of the church. For a pope to have been a very credible witness to
Very charismatic.
Yes,
Young
and
people. Gusto
so-
siya ng kabataan.
and relatable siya in a way na he's very human, as what most people would say. And then I was part of those who went to UST for that audience with the Pope. We were there when we saw Gleisel Palomares, the one who cried in front of the Pope and was embraced by the Pope. And I think it was a very moving scene. No? Nandun kami sa field sa UST. But there's this curious trivia. I'm actually named after a pope. So my real name is John Paul.
Oh!
So
Okay.
So and
Named after JP1 or
JP2.
JP2.
JP2, my dad saw an old newspaper of his visit to the Philippines, and
You were born 87, right?
Yes.
So yung visit ni JP2 was 81. Yung
81.
The first one.
So
Okay.
I was named after a pope.
Wait,
So,
John Paul. Tapos paano naging Lance?
it's a nickname I got from the seminary. So I'm an ex-seminarian.
Okay.
So they call me by my surname, Bolano. So eventually it
Lance.
evolved into Lance.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
so that sense of that closeness with JP2, he was a rock star. We were singing Tell the World of His Love in 95 when I was a
yes.
kid.
Oo.
And I think the example of Francis has made it closer for me now that I understand more of Catholic theology, of the Catholic faith, now that I'm teaching it.
Yeah.
And I think it has been more alive than
Right.
ever. Kasi dati parang, okay, I'm proud that I'm named after the Pope, but here's a Pope who's actually parang...
Isinabuhay niya
Oo.
talaga.
So,
So 37 years old and you feel like that, you think yung mga ka-generation mo, ganyan din yung pakiramdam nila. Pope Francis made the faith more real for them.
yes, I think so. Especially when I'm interacting with my students, no. Sabi nila, sir, parang hindi ako naniniwala na dati, pero with this kind of Pope, parang I'm giving the church a chance.
Wow. Giving
so
the church
yun.
a chance.
The benefit of the
Wait,
doubt.
where were you when you heard that he had passed? And what was your first thought?
Just like Lib, I thought it was fake news because I was actually teaching.
Oh my gosh.
So, and our topic is about that Catholic social teaching principle, preferential option for the poor.
Oh, I remember that from Theo. Yeah. Theo 131, Theology of Liberation. Tama.
So I was teaching that topic, and then after the class, one of my students said, "Sir, check your Facebook, check your social media. The Pope is dead." Parang imposible. Kasi Easter
Hapon lang,
Sunday,
oo.
nagbigay siya ng Urbi et Orbi. Tapos sabi ko, baka fake news. So let's check it. And then, so he's dead. So medyo malungkot. Tapos, I'm grieving in my own way. I wasn't crying, but I felt sad. And the pain of loss, parang
Right.
surreal na nandun siya sa casket. Tapos,
Right.
and there was this moving scene when his friend who was a nun,
The
who
nun,
was
French
crying.
nun.
Oh. So I think parang I can resonate with her feelings. I can empathize with her. Parang napakalaking kawalan, but at the same time, grateful for the leadership, for the witness that he actually lived out the faith really well, especially yung closeness with the poor. Yun, para sa akin, very special yun.
Like we always say, grief is love that has nowhere to go. Father Nono, your own personal encounter, and syempre, Jesuita, so meron talaga kayong parang access kay Pope Francis.
When he visited the Philippines, he asked for an audience with the Jesuits here. So there were 40 of us who went to the nunciature to meet with him. And before he arrived, we were given these formal instructions, protocols how to meet the Pope. But when he arrived, he just threw all of that away, because we're supposed to just sit and stand when we greet him, and then he would call for us, and we would line up. But when he arrived, he started just going to the Jesuits, each one of us, and and the senior ones he would embrace, mga matatandang Jesuita. So that broke the ice right away. And then I made him laugh. I can claim that I have a picture of that.
And
I
we'll
made him
show
laugh
it, we'll use it.
because for his visit, Jesuit Communications produced an album of songs for the Pope. And we had Cardinal Chito Tagle, his best friend, his BFF, sing a song for
Which
Pope
song
Francis.
did he sing?
Sanlibong Buhay.
Okay.
It's a Tagalog song. Anyway, so that's what I told him when I showed him the album. Your best friend Chito Tagle is there, and he said, "Hey."
O nga pala, you can imitate Pope Francis. Sige nga, tuloy mo lang. Yung
Okay.
sinabi niya dun sa Manila Cathedral. Paano?
This is my impersonation of Pope Francis when he met with the priests at the cathedral, Manila Cathedral.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
I love that.
Eh, syempre, lahat
thank you very
sumagot.
much.
Yes, di ba?
Thank you very much.
Do you love
Thank you very
me?
much.
So we met with him there, and he had a not so very good history with the Jesuits. You know that.
Yes.
Right.
But he redeemed himself, no?
Yeah.
In a
we
way. Is
redeemed
the correct
ourselves.
word? Or you redeemed yourselves? The
Yeah.
Jesuits.
He did for everybody.
Yeah, we redeemed ourselves because he was exiled by the Jesuits
Yeah.
to PhD studies, and you know how hard that is.
That's what they do.
Pag,
Yes.
so pag mag-PhD study ka, yun na yun.
Well, for Pope Francis,
Yeah.
It's a promotion.
yeah. So anyway, but he was. He
How
was,
long was that visit with the
1 hour.
1
Yeah, it
hour?
was,
Talagang he really takes time, no?
Yeah,
He will take
yeah,
take time to be with you, no?
And he opened the floor for questions. You know, it was supposed to be just meet and greet, and then we go. But he said he was enjoying it because that started all this meeting with Jesuits anywhere he goes. It was in the
Yun, that
Philippines,
particular,
yes. So after that, wherever
Kaya
he goes,
pala,
when he went to Korea, he also met with the Korean Jesuits. That started. That was started here.
What is it about the Jesuits, no? Talagang paborito ng Santo Papa. Oh,
He was a Jesuit.
biased ako eh. Tito ko Jesuita eh.
Yes.
I thought he said, I think when the Filipino Jesuits were introduced to the Pope, he said, "Oh, God help us."
No, what he said, he made a
Ang sabi
joke.
niya?
You made a joke.
Ay,
He made a
ano?
joke, di ba?
That was an icebreaker, actually. He said, he just came from Sri Lanka, right?
Right.
And he said, I was met by elephants in Sri Lanka. And they were better dressed than you are. We laughed. So,
Talaga, mga Jesuita talaga.
Yeah, so-
Okay.
Hey, his name is Chico Garcia,
And his name is Gino Killiamore.
and together we are Only Fun.
That's right, for only $12 a month.
Ah.
Joke.
But if you're willing to pay, why not? No, we're from a podcast that talks about movies, TV shows. Basically, we do reviews of K-dramas, whatever really, whatever is on streaming, whatever is on cinemas. We also get to occasionally interview celebrities, actors, directors.
And of course, infused with our own witty brand of humor and slice of life.
Wow. I guess we don't infuse a lot.
Check it out.
Well, my next question is about ano ba yung mga central themes of his papacy. And actually, your answers in the last round have already, in a sense, touched on that. No? So a little bit more of that, di ba? Kasi naalala ko talaga yung field hospital. And even Chito Tagle would talk about that. No? The church should be the field hospital. Going to the peripheries, yung the last, the least, and the lost. Talagang wala kang, di ba, you reach out to people, and yung effect na nga niya sa tao, 'di ba? Renewal of faith, people coming back to the church, unusual, no?
Yeah.
Mike?
I said earlier na he speaks very much like Jesus because he did not focus on the rituals as ends in themselves. I mean, our rituals should help inspire us, di ba?
Right.
But if they become ends in themselves, then we lose the essence of being a church that should reach out to the poor. Parang ganon. So, we must always, if we are going to celebrate the rituals, they should inspire us to be more loving, to be more neighborly. Tayo naman. Nasanay tayo sa simba na tingin ka lang ng tingin sa oras.
Sa oras.
Anong oras matatapos, di ba?
Tapos pag humaba ang homily ng pare, pag sumobra ng 8 minutes, naku naman, ganun.
So, naging ganon. So, but Francis, for some reason, was able to inspire people to go beyond the ritualism of people and really reach out.
Yeah. Danny?
I think parang talaga siya, he's an avant-garde in very very many ways. No, para tuloy nung when I was trying to make an analogy again, yung pagiging avant-garde niya, yung yung 'di ba sinabi ni Jesus na the day of rest is the day of Sabbath, must be reserved for but he was curing the sick people during those days. Ganyan din ang tingin ko kay Pope Francis.
Walang pahinga.
Walang pahinga. If it is necessary, then must do it. Wala na yung just like what you said, the rituals, yung kung may mga protocols yan, everything just like what you said, Father, yung mga protocols tinatapon niya sa isang tabi because there is something that has to be done. Yun yung nakita ko talaga sa kanyang he's a very avant-garde, and they were claiming na Jesuita kasi that's why it's avant-garde. But
kasalanan ng mga Jesuit.
kasalanan ng mga Jesuita yun. Pero naman, meron ng mga kilalang Jesuita na hindi naman very avant-garde. But
Initials.
kilala ko rin.
Who are you referring to, Dan?
Kaya na-associate ko talaga sa kanya yung pagiging avant-garde na attitude.
Okay. He didn't really change church doctrine, no, Father Nono, and yet,
Yeah.
I mean, mas marami pa siyang parang, I don't know, mas marami pa siyang pinabalik or
Actually, what they're saying now, may mga theologians tayo dito, that actually he just implemented Vatican II.
Yeah.
Vatican II, the church opened to, to the world. And ang sabi nga nila, di ba, he brought us back to what the church is all about, which was, sabi nga ni Sir Mike, it's not about the pomp
rituals,
and
the
it's about the
ceremony.
mission. And the mission
Yes.
is to communicate to the world God's mercy and love and compassion. And so, and that's Vatican II, right?
Yeah.
And so, we were derailed.
Yeah.
Many things happened na derail tayo. And he brought us back to the mission of the church. So,
Di ba, Jesus often quoted this prophet na parang what pleases the Lord is mercy,
not
not
sacrifice. Yeah.
not
mercy, not,
sacrifices.
yeah. Not sacrificing, yeah.
Offering that you do
Not the offerings.
in the altar.
Yeah.
What pleases the Lord is mercy, not sacrifice. So Jesus would often,
Right now, people fight about should the mass be in Latin,
Yeah,
or should we be
di ba?
standing up or kneeling
Yeah.
down? And I would tell them
That's ceremonious.
the Eucharist was based on the Last Supper. They were all sitting, and he was speaking in
Yeah.
Aramaic,
Yeah.
Hebrew Aramaic. But these little things, when in fact
we love to
the faith is
quibble
all
over
about
the
God's love.
little things. Should I receive communion with the left or the right? Or both.
And I think a key part of that really is a shift in many ways to thinking about not so much truth is argued, but truth is lived. I think one of the things, that strikes me in the Gospels is how often Jesus performs miracles and then says, right, it's your faith that's healed you.
Yeah.
No, it's your faith that's healed you. In a sense, grace is already there. Collaborate with it. And I think in many ways that was Francis's shift. It wasn't we have to fight battles to prove that we're the truth. But yet because of our firm belief, we see that grace at work and operative in the hearts of people. And we see that it's present. And so therefore, we can look at many of his statements, who am I to judge? But I think the point was you start with what the person brings, and it's not the state that's most important of life, but it's the condition of the heart. And if the heart has grace moving within it, if there's a desire to be holy, there's a desire to be there, then we need to draw people in. Don't say, well, if you want to, then you have to do this and this and this and this. Dagdag ng mga kailangan gawin bago pumasok. Hindi, nandyan na eh. Nandyan ang biyaya, diba? And you can pull and draw and start there and let grace grow, because grace is ultimately God's gift to us. And the Lord will make it work. Our job is to collaborate with grace, not to pretend that we own grace and that we dish out grace.
Dispenser of
we
grace,
dispense
yeah.
mercy
Yeah.
because that's what allows grace to grow. And that lets the Lord work in people's hearts. And it shifts the focus. I think and I think that was what Francis's sensibility was. And I would say also in many ways what I've been touched by is I think Benedict realized that was a shift that was needed, and he wasn't the man to do it. And I think that's also a part for what
That's
Francis's papacy has done, has made me appreciate much more Benedict, because theologically I think they were very similar. He would quote Benedict all the time.
Yes.
But I think he had a pastoral sense that made Benedict's keen insights real in the life of mission and the life of church.
Yeah. Oo.
I
Parang
want to hear
not
more of
everything
you.
can be from the pulpit. It can't be like intellectual. It has to be lived out. Di ba?
And parishes should exist to not looking inward, right? I think we all get caught up in this. Those of us that work in parishes know it's all about to serve the church is to serve the parish rather than parishes as church serving the nation.
We're supposed to go to the peripheries. Exactly what
To
Francis
serve the
said.
parish priest.
He was, of course, he was known for his criticism toward the church, diba?
Right.
The church has become so self-referential
Yes.
rather than going out. And his favorite phrase was, or quotation was, I'd rather have a church that is bruised because she's been out in the streets doing her mission rather than,
Yeah.
Church that is so.
Yun, oo, yun ang
Preserving
ano,
herself.
field
So
hospital.
it's really,
And that
Field
was
hospital
Jesus,
talaga.
right? I mean, that's Jesus on the
That's
cross,
Jesus.
right? He's not pristine and perfect.
yeah.
Yes.
And in fact, it even strikes me like in the resurrection accounts, right? How often they still touch his wounds, right? So even the resurrected Jesus is not
Yeah.
pristine,
Yeah.
right? That it continues, right? It's transformed.
Yeah.
It's not a wound anymore, but it's a transformed, and that it's not by avoiding woundedness that we are church, but actually by entering into the woundedness of the world that we become the transformative. We
So he
allow
made-
God's transformative
So
power
in a
to
way,
work.
like Francis made our faith real for us,
Yeah. Very
or more
real.
real, and that's why a lot of people would say, that's why I'm back in the church, or no.
Oh, I started praying again because of Francis.
Ano man? Matagal ka lang nagdadasal.
I just remember the theme of continuity, and Francis quoting Benedict often. I think it's one of the last documents that Benedict
Lumen
wrote.
Fidei.
No, it's about the Porta Fidei, the doors of the faith. There was this theme that I can remember, that Pope Benedict wanted the doors of the church to be open so that people can be let in. And yet when Pope Francis took over, he says the same thing. Let's open the doors of the church, but not to let people in,
But to let
but so
people
that
out.
the
So we
church
go
can go
out.
out. So there's that opening of the
Yeah.
doors of the church,
Oo.
but that the perspective is different. Both
Yeah.
are necessary.
Yes.
Both are
Oo.
necessary.
Or in others, parang bang there should be a shift kasi ang nangyari parang the concern was, too little people are going to Sunday Mass. So it's not about making people come to Sunday Mass, but the church going out to the peripheries,
And-
di ba? To make the faith real. Parang, di ba? Ganun ba yun?
And I think even Cardinal David talked about that, right, in terms of his own experience as the war on drugs began, and as he
Yung
began
mission
to think
stations
the
na.
mission stations being started, and
Yeah.
and he said, many ways it was the sensibility of Evangelii Gaudium, and that emphasis that Pope Francis had reminded him that we can't just look at who are the people that are not coming to Mass, but also who are the people that are outside of even our church reach, so it's those that we need to, because we weren't talking about people in the church being killed, but people in a sense outside of the church community. And so why have we lost them? Why aren't we where they are? No, and so I think that's even an example of how that perspective shifted.
Yeah.
We're almost apologetic when we say that we should go out to the poor, we should smell like the sheep. We're almost apologetic. I mean, why should we apologize? Hey, that's the original message of Jesus, really. Di ba? Is go out, feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, visit the naked. No. Visit the prisoners, clothe the naked.
Yun. Okay. O sige, we're gonna move to the end of this episode, but I wanted to ask you muna, ano yung mga, those little vignettes, those little anecdotes, the things, the nice stories that you remember about Pope Francis. My favorite, for example, is that little boy, Emmanuel, who asked him if his father, who was an atheist and who had died, was in heaven. That's for me. So, Danny, ikaw, anong favorite mo?
Yung do you love me? Kasi
Love me.
do you love me? Yeah.
Thank you
Kasi
very much.
Kasi because yung nga gaya sabi niya, that is when the Sleeping Saint Joseph was introduced. And you know what? I have a beautiful art interpretation of a Sleeping Saint Joseph at home. It's not the usual, the one na nakaganyan, but it's lying on something like this, but he was sleeping. It's a beautiful Sleeping Saint Joseph interpreted by an artist.
Okay.
Yun ang,
That's nice.
that's why we were married on the feast of Saint Joseph nung March 19. So the more I became closer to the to Saint Joseph, the more and that particular thing that, and do you love me, and you make your wish to Sleeping
Okay.
Saint Joseph. Kaya
So, Mike, your favorite story of Pope Francis?
Well, as I said, when he introduced the sleeping
Saint Joseph, okay.
Saint Joseph, maganda you create art that will feature the sleeping Saint Joseph in a jeepney. No, I mean,
Pero si
tired,
Mike, di ba,
tired because of work. Yung mga Pinoy, di ba, nakakatulog.
pero pagkatapos kay St. Joseph, pinatulog na rin nila sa Maria, tapos silang tatlo. Have you seen that?
Tulog
Meron
na
din
sila.
yun?
Meron na rin si Mary
Okay.
tulog habang nagbabantay si St. Joseph. After the success of the sleeping St.
Sleeping
Joseph,
Saint Joseph.
pagkatapos merong tatlo na silang tulog. Sabi ko, sino mag-aalaga kay
Ay,
Jesus kung lahat
The
natutulog?
Sleeping Holy Family. Lance, yung kwan mo, yung favorite story mo.
Favorite story was ang dami, especially when everything came up after his death. Siguro if I had to choose one was that when he went to Tacloban. And more recently dahil nga bumalik parang people were asking, why do you have to go to Tacloban? It's been 2 years since it happened. And Pope Francis just said, I just had to be here. I just had to be here.
That's
Parang no words. Parang I have no way to console you. I cannot bring the dead back to life.
Yeah.
I just had
But
to be
his
here.
presence, his
I just had to be here.
presence, so.
And I think that's
Yeah.
a credible witness.
Yeah. I was with him na nga the whole time. We were 14 Filipino journalists, and that was one of the pinaka moment talaga ng trip niya kasi napakasimple ng message niya. I'm here.
Yeah.
'Di ba? Isn't that the most comforting thing, 'di ba? When you're in trouble, pag malungkot ka, if someone close to you is present for you. Napakalaking bagay 'yon, 'di ba? Yung I'm here, 'di ba? Liv, what about you? Your favorite Pope Francis story?
Madami din eh. Especially but I think it's that theme of, I have no answers, I have no words, I'm just there. So, like even until the last few weeks, he's been calling the parish priest in Gaza,
Right.
in the midst of death and destruction and possibly genocide, all of this just happening, and just, I can't save you, but I can listen to you. I can let you know you're not alone. Even after Tacloban, diba, when the worker passed away, diba, and then her father was here, like to take time just to meet
Yeah.
with him. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's just a lot of that, like just a sense that you just are present. And you show up. You have to just be there, and it's not to say anything, but just so that people are not alone.
Father Nono?
John Allen would say that you can summarize his theology, Pope Francis' theology, with the word encounter. And he taught that not by lectures, but by showing us his little encounters with simple, ordinary people. And the one that stands out for me, if you remember Emmanuel Ako, Vinicio Riva. You remember him? The man with the
Oh, yes. Okay.
Disfigured.
Yes. Yeah.
boils all over his body. And yet-
Hinalikan siya, no?
and he was hiding all his life. He was hiding since he developed that illness. And yet when Pope Francis had an audience, St. Peter's Square, he was hiding, of course. Meron siyang hood. But Pope Francis saw him from a distance.
Parang ketong yata yun.
Boils.
Boils, yeah.
And then Pope Francis went down, from his mobile, and then embraced him and
Embraced
kissed him. You know why that's stuck with me, because I couldn't do that. Even as a priest, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Grabe yung ginawa niya yan.
Yun ang mercy and compassion. Well, anyway, there's this song so popular with Athenians and Jesuits. And Father Nono, your fellow Jesuits all over the world, which the Filipino Jesuits started, you serenade Pope Francis with this whenever he comes to visit in the country where the Jesuits are. This is the song Amare et Servire, Love and Service. And isn't that what Pope Francis is all about? So, I wanted to ask you if we can sing that now.
Here's a picture of me and Pope
Show me.
Francis.
And we will show this, we will close up. Ayan. Show sa camera. Yun.
Ang galing,
Ito yung visit niya.
Yes, when I made him laugh.
Okay.
Was he laughing with you or at you, Father?
I think with. And this was the same visit where
Yes,
you
yes.
sang Amare et
Yeah.
Servire.
At the end of the visit.
At the
we
end of the
sang for it.
visit, yeah.
So it goes, in omnibus amare, in omnibus servire, in omnibus amare, et servire Domino. In everything love and serve the Lord. Pia's turn.
Naku, naiya ako. Omnibus amare, in omnibus
servire, in omnibus amare, et servire Domino. In everything love and serve the Lord.
Well, thank you for joining me in this first conversation or second conversation. First. But sina Father Nono, Dr. Lib, Dr. Lance, Dr. Mike, and I was about to say Cardinal Danny, Cardinal Tito, are still going to join me in the next episode. Now, as Pope Francis leads the church into a new era, or led the church into a new era, the world prepares for what may come next. In our next episode, we go deeper into the institution of the papacy itself, its meaning, its responsibilities, and most importantly, how a new pope is chosen, because a conclave is happening on May 7th. I hope you'll stay with us for this journey. Once again, this is Pia Ontiveros, and this has been Voices at the Pod, Pia and the Pope, Faith and Fervor.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.